All right, y'all. This is unfortunately a very big one. We have insane news out of Utah. I am sure that you have seen it, but I'm here to react to it. Charlie Kirk, the conservative activist, was killed, assassinated, murdered today on the campus of, I think, Utah Valley University. There's video circulating of it everywhere. Some video of it is, well, all of it is bad, and then there are versions of it that are extremely bad. If the closer you get to see what happens, he was shot through the neck. It is gruesome. If you've not seen it, you might be morbidly curious to check it out. My official recommendation is to not do it. Can I tell them what happened to you on the plane? I'm here with Othello, my producer. We just got to Las Vegas. That's the first thing we did. We checked in and came right to the room, and here we are. He threw up on the plane. He was so grossed out by it. I feel bad because I'm the one that sent him the up close version. In any event, please don't watch it if you don't have to. This is this is an incredibly serious and dangerous moment right now in this country, and I want to be as clear as I possibly can that there probably isn't any single opinion that Charlie Kirk has ever had that I've ever agreed with. But that has absolutely nothing to do with whether or not we accept a world where political violence is legitimate, even against your political adversaries. And I'm here to declare it absolutely is not. More to the point, it's very difficult for me to look at a young child. He did have young children, even though I think he was 31 years old, and then not feel an extraordinary degree of sympathy for them for now having lost a father, which in a world in which they will grow up without one. That is not to say that I did not find some of his views on political issues odious. Particularly, he was, very pro-Israeli. At the moment in which he was killed, he was discussing whether or not transgender people are exceptionally prone to violence and more commonly associated with mass shootings, which, to be clear, there's absolutely zero evidence for whatsoever. Again, that has nothing to do with whether or not he deserved to be killed. He did not. Absolutely, he did not. But that I'm just trying to set the context. He was doing the thing where he goes to college campuses and he'll debate skeptics or critics or whoever, and then a lot of his supporters go in and cheer him on, and it's a lot of that. I mean, he was literally in the process of debating. Not a single person, not an activist, not a polemicist, not a political leader, not a political adversary, not a political someone you're aligned with. Nobody deserves in this country to be killed this way, to be targeted for political violence. Absolutely, I condemn it in the strongest possible terms. It is bad for society. We went up against something like this when Luigi Mangione killed the United Healthcare CEO, and there were people being like, "Well, this guy was taking away people's healthcare," and it's like, right. First of all, that by itself does not justify the unethical act of murder, but more to the point, you don't want to live in a society where people are engaging in this kind of behavior, not least of which is because it could affect someone that you personally might care about, whether you care about Charlie Kirk or the next person that this might happen to. But it's what it says about a society when this is commonplace. Political violence is a cancer. It is a cancer, and it affects a certain kind of person irrespective of political persuasion. You're going to hear probably a lot. I've already seen Elon Musk, who could not be a more irresponsible, reprehensible POS with what he is out there tweeting, trying to make some kind of argument that like political violence is somehow especially pronounced on the left, whereas these were people, Charlie Kirk included, who mocked Nancy Pelosi when her house got essentially invaded with the dude with the hammer. These are people who have said next to nothing, have no sympathy for the cops killed as a consequence of January 6th or January 6th more broadly, the violence that we saw, or the plot to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer, or some of the white supremacist gangs who've tried to go after not individual political people, but to go after the electrical grid. There's been arrests about that recently as well, and of course it extends to the other side. There's been the folks who go the first assassination attempt on Trump. Today, or I mean, you name it, political violence is now what I would argue common in this country. It has absolutely no ideological barrier. It has absolutely no ideological specialization or particular alignment in one direction or the other. It is a festering cancer. It is a metastasized beast that will eat anything in its way if it is allowed to exist. And more to the point, this is why I am quite fearful, not merely for the retribution that might come, whatever that may look like, but because of what it says about your country when this kind of thing is happening regularly. And by the way, well, we'll get to this. We'll get to that part in a minute. If you are in a country that is experiencing routine or relatively routine political violence, you are living in a place with weak institutions. You are living in a place where the people do not believe that the government can work in concert with their adversaries, political adversaries, to pass meaningful legislation that meaningfully improves people's lives. You are living in a place with weak institutions, and you are living in a place where people, in many cases, have lost hope in a sane and normal process for the government to improve their lives. You are living in a place that is weak and it is broken. And a cancer like political violence only makes those things weaker and only makes them less responsive. When Luigi Mangione killed the healthcare executive, even if you were one of those people that did not feel a great degree of personal sympathy to the victim in that particular case, trust me when I tell you, you would rather live in a world where your healthcare needs can be more meaningfully addressed than a world where someone, a lone gunman, decides to then go off executives who run private healthcare companies. And the difference between those two kinds of countries is vast. I was telling Othello this on the way to getting here. Dude, Colombia just had a political assassination. There was a conservative political candidate, Miguel Uribe Turbay, I think was his last name. They called him Uribe, so whatever, his last name was Uribe. He was a conservative. This dude was making, I'm not joking about this, he was making a speech about there's not much of a need or value to gun control when I think it was a 14-year-old kid came and put a bullet in his head. He didn't die at the scene. He actually lived for weeks, but then he succumbed to his injuries more recently. And I'm just sitting here thinking to myself, Charlie Kirk was out there, a conservative, a young guy. Well, by the way, this candidate in Colombia was a very young guy as well. Look up how old he was. Miguel Uribe Turbay, Turbay. Young guy, conservative, in public, talking about gun violence in the country, or what to do about it from a conservative perspective, and then killed. How old was he? 39. So Charlie Kirk and this guy, both 39. Guys, when you hear about political assassinations or political violence in a place like Colombia, what is the first thing that you think about Colombia when you hear that? You think about how weak it is and how dangerous it is and how commonplace that is and what it says about the government's ability to meaningfully solve that particular problem, or really any problem that could even come up. And the parallels to me are ominous. Ominous. You do not want to live in a country that has political violence like this. What it says about the rot of our system is frightening. It is frightening. It is frightening. I want to say something that I do think is extremely important to say at this moment, which is I do not know what the motives are of the shooter. Once again, opportunists on the right have decided that this has to be some kind of left-wing loon. And to be clear, it absolutely could end up being that. But you'll recall, why was Ronald Reagan nearly assassinated? Because John Hinckley was so out of his mind, he thought by killing Reagan he could impress Hollywood actress Jodie Foster. Sometimes the motivations behind acts like these are not taken along expressly partisan terms. They can have some partisan valence, but maybe they don't altogether. We simply do not know at the moment that I'm speaking to you now. Now, maybe in a day or two or whatever, we will. But as I record this video now, that is not the case. So I want to encourage everyone who is rational and thoughtful and caring and understanding to wait until we have more information before we start trying to make sense of this particular crime. It is heinous, and it is frightening, and it is violent and nasty. But what the shooter's motivations are, we simply do not know. And I have seen this situation play out so many times that it doesn't necessarily happen along the partisan contours that you are accustomed to with debates about any other issue. I would also add, and I know what folks on the right are probably going to say at a moment like this, which is now is not the time, but they say that all the time. I just don't know how you can't look at a country like this, experience political violence like it experienced today, and there was another school shooting today coinciding with the shooting of Charlie Kirk that took place in Denver. I do not know how many, I think 2 are at least dead there. I don't know what the present situation is. I'm still trying to grapple with all of this, just as all of you are. But they don't want to have a conversation about what is an obvious and real and quite credible culprit, which is we are awash in firearms in this country, and nobody seems to have either the political will or the belief to do anything about it. And as a consequence, people who should not be dying are dying. Utah has some laws about permitless carry. Individual universities, I don't know what UVU's rules were about what you were allowed to carry on campus there or not. I know that Utah has, relatively speaking, because of gun violence, unusually high suicide rates. But, I know RFK has recently said SSRIs are the problem, but yet Iceland is on them to a degree much more so than us and doesn't have any of the political problems. Japan is an advanced society that has as many part of their culture as, in terms of video games as we do. These are not the culprits. The culprits are firearms. And if we have no political will to do anything about this, this is not violence that is going to spill over into one ideological camp or the other. Everyone is going to get a lick. Everybody. And then as a parent to somebody who has a daughter, I'm a parent, I have a daughter in public school. My producer, Othello, same thing. This is a frightening thing that we have to think about all the time. Charlie Kirk should be alive today, even if you disagree with his views and you find his worldview ideologically unjustifiable. He should be alive today. He should be able to go home to his family today. And there are many reasons why he cannot. Perhaps mental illness is one of them. Perhaps there are a series of other factors we don't know about yet. But one of them clearly is the fact that there are enough firearms in this country for every man, woman, and child. With that amount of ubiquity plus an unwillingness in any kind of way, for the most part, to do anything about their ubiquity or their access or where you can take them or what these weapons specifically can do, we are inviting this kind of violence into our lives. I recognize that what happened here today does not begin and end with this part of the conversation. And for people who say, well, what would you like them to do? What kind of gun laws would you like to pass? My response to that is the same everywhere. Even if you said you did not want to pass anything right now because you could not comfortably be convinced that any one particular measure would work, the Rand Corporation has done a huge amount of study on this. And one conclusion that they have come to about what works and what information we have is that we simply do not have enough information. Only recently, since 1996, they had stopped, I think in the last couple of years, they have resumed congressional funding for firearm violence studying, but it's a drop in the bucket. I think 15-20 million annually. It's nothing. It needs to be 10 times that amount in order for us to figure out what can we reasonably do to mitigate the violence that comes from the ubiquity of the amount of firearms that we have in this country. Surely I can convince you, surely you could meet me halfway and say, at a bare minimum, isn't this something we should study? Isn't this something that we should prioritize? Isn't this something that we should fund? Not one more child needs to die tomorrow in this country because of gun violence. Not one more person on the left, on the right, whether a polemicist or not, needs to die because of gun violence in this country. And the sad reality is they will. Meet me halfway and at least support the notion that we need vastly more research into what we can do to mitigate and eliminate, no, but certainly mitigate the kind of violence we are awash in, because it enabled some lunatic, partisan actor, whatever you want, an assassin, a murderer today, to take away a father from a family, to take away a dad from a little girl today. And as the dad to a little girl, even if I don't agree with a single effing thing Charlie Kirk ever said, and even if I think some of the policies, the anti-Palestinian rhetoric he went into, the anti-trans rhetoric he went into, and I know that there are people out there saying, don't we have evidence of him saying that some gun deaths are ultimately, we have to accept it as part of a civilized society? I realize that. That doesn't mean I have to agree with him in any of those points. And it doesn't mean I think he deserves to be, any rational person thinks he deserves to be the recipient of a murderous intent. This is scary. This is dangerous. Political violence is a mirror letting you know what is happening here. It is a mirror to the rest of you to let you know we're in a bad place. This can spill in so many different directions, in so many partisan ways. And I do not know at this present moment which of those will happen or what will happen at all. But what I can tell you is this is not about the act of one gunman. This is not just the act of what we do about guns. These acts tell you that you live in a failing political system. We need leaders in Washington and in all the various state capitals who are willing to make good choices, to make changes, to actually do things that materially help the American people to live in a more cohesive society, to have institutions we can believe in, and playgrounds that kids can go and play in without the risk of violence or people expressing their political opinions and being shot in the neck publicly for it. It is a mirror. It is a mirror letting you know we are in trouble. More on this later.